Whoa, what is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Probably going to have a double dose of Tana today. Yes, I spoke about myself in the third person again. I'm going to have a video kind of breaking down what Joe Shane had to say in his press conference because I always think it's better to react to the video than rather than to react to quotes when I get the option. So I know I've done a few of those in the past, the last couple of months, and I thought it was important to go over what he had to say at the owners' meeting. So I'll definitely have a video up on that later tonight as well. But one individual video that I thought was important to talk about, and I don't know how popular this video is going to be. This might get 500 views for all I know. I don't know. But I think it's interesting. I think it's important. And it's something that we've been talking about on my channel and Giants channels for the last 5 years. And it's because the New York Giants have been the most injured team in football. Before we get into the specifics and the differences in terms of the turf that the New York Giants have changed from, because I tried to do a little bit of research to further educate myself to talk about how much this may benefit the New York Giants this upcoming season, I want to go over just how injured the New York Giants have been. Since 2009, there has not been a team that has had more injuries in the National Football League than the New York Giants. Now, of course, not all of that falls on the turf, but we're going to talk about some of the disadvantages to playing on this surface. And the stats back it up, the facts back it up, and I do think by changing to a different turf, it should help the New York Giants hopefully have at least a few less injuries this upcoming season. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, but it came out yesterday, and we already knew this. We just didn't know the specific type of turf that the New York Giants were going to choose to shift from because there's several different types. I feel like I'm a gardener after doing some research that I did. We didn't switch to grass, and I think in a best case scenario, ideally, that's what we all want as Giants fans. At the end of the day, what's the main reason why we don't have grass? Let's be real. Money. It's in these owners' best interest to try to make as much money as they possibly can. Grass requires a lot of upkeep, a lot of repair. The turf is permanent, right? And a major reason why the New York Giants have had the type of turf they've had, along with 6 other teams in the NFL, 7 teams total, Giants being one of them, the Jets being another, though. So really 6 stadiums. The Lions have now switched from the same turf the Giants had, along with the Tennessee Titans. So I think it's only 4 teams, and maybe other teams have switched as well. But going into last year, 7 teams had the turf that the New York Giants had. And now I believe it's at least only 4. It might even be less than that because teams have started to see the benefit from an injury standpoint of shifting from it. But why have the Giants and Jets have it? Why have the Detroit Lions had it? Because the turf that the Giants are switching to is not as durable, but it lends itself to less injuries, at least statistically speaking. And when you take a look at some of the photos and the graphics in terms of the different types of turf, I think you can see why and understand why, and we'll get into some of the reasons why people feel that the turf that the New York Giants switched from was causing more injuries. But I think there's great news. If this saves 1 injury a year as a Giants fan, that's great. But I wanted to get in some of the quotes, some of the notes and quotes from yesterday. This coming out from Dan Duggan. John Mara confirmed that the turf at Metlife Stadium and the Giants practice facility is being replaced. Mara said that they're installing a monofilament. I hope that's how it's pronounced. Version of field turf. We'll get into the exact specifics of what they switch from. Mara on natural grass. My hope is that we get to a day at some point in the future where we can have a grass field that we're able to maintain with 2 different teams and all the other events. I think we can get there. Maybe it's a hybrid product or something. And of course, I'm not saying that Mara's greedy. I understand the challenges that the New York Giants face as opposed to other teams that may have a grass field in the NFL. 2 teams play on the field, right? There's more wear and tear. There's a lot of events that go on at MetLife Stadium as well. So I understand it's not the same necessarily as another field that may have a grass field. The Giants have a stadium where 2 teams play, 2 professional teams. So every week, instead of every other week, there's a game that's being played at that facility. So understandably so, it's going to be a lot more money to have a grass field. But at least at a bare minimum, it seems like by switching to this new turf, it should provide the New York Giants with less injuries. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But let's get into the specifics as to why that may be. The data supports the anecdotes you'll hear from me and other players. This was an article actually written by J.C. Treader, a player from within the NFL, talking about the difference to turf, to grass. We're going to get into the specific difference between the 2 different turfs that the New York Giants have had. Artificial turf is significantly harder on the body than grass. Based on NFL injury data collected from 2012 to 2018, not only was the contact injury rate for lower extremities higher during practices and games held on artificial turf, NFL players consistently experienced a much higher rate of non-contact lower extremity injuries on turf compared to natural surfaces. And we remember as Giants fans, last year, I think it was Shepard's injury, completely non-contact. Nobody was near him. And a lot of us felt like he kind of got his feet, caught in the turf. Specifically, players have a 28% higher rate of non-contact lower extremity injuries when playing on artificial turf. Of those non-contact injuries, players have a 32% higher rate of non-contact knee injuries on turf and a staggering 69% higher rate of non-contact foot to ankle injuries on turf compared to grass. So that's just talking turf to grass. That's not talking specific turf, but obviously you could see the benefit outside of the money aspect of, having grasses, compared to turf. This is going a little bit further into detail. This talks about the teams that had the type of turf that the New York Giants had. Just like there are different types of grass, there are different types of turf. Monofilament dual fiber slit film. Those are the three different types. The slit film, which is the field that the New York Giants have had, the playing surface that they've had, the slit film playing surface has statistically higher in-game injury rates compared to all other surfaces for each of the following: non-contact injuries, missed time injuries, lower extremity injuries, foot and ankle injuries. There are currently 7 teams that use slit film in their stadiums: the Giants, the Jets, the Lions, the Vikings, the Saints, the Colts, and the Bengals. And I think the Titans had it too. I thought I read an article on that, but maybe they switched it last year. But regardless, I know that the Lions already changed out of it. Obviously, the Jets and Giants have now too. So now, unless the other teams still have it, there's only 4 teams, that being the Vikings, Saints, Colts, and Bengals, that still use this type of turf. The NFL and its experts have agreed with this data and acknowledged that slit film field is less safe. Player leadership wrote a letter to the NFL this week demanding the immediate removal of these fields and a ban on them going forward, both in stadiums and for practice fields. The NFL has not only refused to mandate this change immediately, but they have also refused to commit to mandating a change away from slit film in the future at all. That was an article, I guess, written, at some point during last year. In the slide, BioCore explains that slit film has a statistically significant higher risk of lower extremity injuries than the league average, explaining that independent analysis from BioCore, whatever IQVIA, agree on that point. The slide also says that models suggest there are 2 to 3 more non-contact lower extremity injuries per season per stadium on slit film surfaces than other types of synthetic turf fields. So that's not grass to turf, that's turf to turf. They're saying this specific type of turf that the New York Giants have had, on average, has 2 to 3 more injuries, specifically of the lower extremity variety, where you get your feet caught in the turf, than other stadiums. In terms of how it looks, I just looked this up. The one on the left is the one that the New York Giants have had, the New York Jets and the Giants, slit film. They have now shifted to monofilament, which is the one in the middle. And you could see, and we're going to talk, a little bit more in detail about some of the things that I brought up about how people have been able to, have gotten their cleats caught in this type of turf. Well, look at it. I mean, it looks like, just the product itself, just from that illustration, looks like the type of thing that, you may get your foot. It's more likely you would get your foot caught in something like that, which would cause a sprained ankle, a torn ACL, so on and so forth. The problem with slit film turf comes from the construction of the various fake blades of grass. Instead of a single blade of fake grass, monofilament, slit film has openings in the pieces, creating a potential risk of cleats catching in the material. And so, even if it's impractical, dome stadiums with grass, the 6 slit film turf surfaces, the Giants and the Jets share one of them in the U.S., and the slit film turf in London should be replaced as soon as possible with monofilament fields, in the opinion of the union. Other than cost, what's the argument against it? Then again, from the perspective of those who pay the bills, cost may be the only argument that is needed. Ultimately, football is a business. It's a business premised on maximizing profit. And it's no coincidence that the field regarded as the best and most pristine, despite its location, is maintained by one team that doesn't have an owner who eyeballs net revenues for buying the next generation. So those are just a couple of articles that I brought up because I wanted to further educate myself. And I know some people would be interested in this topic. I'm thrilled as a New York Giants fan because it seems like this is a significant upgrade over what we've had in the past. And I don't think it's a coincidence that that is at least part of the reason, even if it's 5% of the reason. I'd like to get rid of that 5%. It's part of the reason why the New York Giants have been the most injured team in football since 2009. And you think about a lot of these injuries, they have been lower extremity injuries. So hopefully we're a lot healthier going forward. Last year, we had the injury bug again, which is why the New York Giants made this change. If you ask me, this change is long overdue, and I'm glad that the Giants are finally making the shift. Obviously, like Mara said, I hope one day the New York Giants are able to shift completely to grass, but I understand from a logistical standpoint why they may be more hesitant to do that than other teams throughout the league due to the fact that it would cost them a lot more in terms of upkeep, but at the same time, it's two teams that are paying for the surface, both the Jets and the Giants. And you would think the owners would want these players to stay as healthy as possible. Yeah, at the end of the day, maybe it's a couple more $1,000,000 a year. I don't know. But these players make multi-million dollars. So you would think it would be in the best interest of both the Giants and the Jets to keep their players as healthy as they possibly can. And at least this is a step in the right direction. I know the Jets haven't been quite as injured as the Giants have, historically speaking. But if you're a Jets fan, I think you're probably excited about this as well. It seems like the type of turf that was at MetLife Stadium was outdated. It was dangerous. And I'm glad that the Giants are making the shift. But I just wanted to educate myself. And I figured, you know what, I'm looking into it. Maybe some of my subscribers would be interested as well. Figured I'd make a video. I'll have a video up later tonight. If not, it'll be coming out early tomorrow about Joe Shane's press conference. Want to do kind of a reaction to it. But rather than kind of do both together, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Figured I'd give you guys an individual video in terms of the turf change at MetLife Stadium. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.